Welcome to Carl DiGregorio's Death Session 74. 74. Before I get off on the wrong foot, I don't have much for 74 either. It's an even number, 74. Nothing sticking out about 74. But I skipped a week last week doing what was sort of the secondary framework I was going to hang each death session on moving forward. Was that because of the way one of these music services has collected data from things I like to play, and I guess it's all based on frequency of playing these songs. It's created a 95 song playlist, which essentially is my playlist. And I guess it's based on so many things go into it. Now, if I wanted to make a playlist, you've seen this before. If you do a playlist, especially in LA, when it rains a couple of times on social media, when it rains, which is rare, you start a thread of rain songs, and you start with Zeppelin's "The Rain Song," and then you go "Can You Stand the Rain" by New Edition, and then "I Can't Stand the Rain." You start doing all the rain. "Who'll Stop the Rain" by Creedence Clearwater, and you get this thread going, and people just start. It's a great interactive thing, and "It Never Rains in Southern California." Tony. I know that's a remake. I don't know who does the original, but you can keep going on these themes, and so that's the kind of joy and funness of the playlists, and all they are databases that you used to carry in your brain and you used to use for bar talk or, after the board game night, or just being, talking to a stranger, or, if you had friends who were of the trivia mind, or if you did go to a concert, then it would start a musical thing. Well, what about that? What about this? Who they open for? All that fun stuff if you're into that. And so now it's sort of being done with data collection, data mining, and then it's spit back at you. And the cool thing about the all-time playlist so far, let's just say it's 5 years I've had this service that I pay for. They're not always the songs that you would back in the day. And I've said this a million times, that if a good pop song, a good song, or any good art for me, it's right on the edge of embarrassing, right on the edge of being cringe. And the cynic watching some things will say, "Oh, how cringe," and just it tells you everything you need to know. But to be brave enough, and I know that's a tricky word, but to have the courage of spirit, let's just say that, to put yourself out there on the edge of embarrassing and exultant, is how you get great art in music and in performance, and even probably writing, kind of being willing to go there, quote unquote. And so a lot of what this playlist reflects is earworms, things that I was inspired to hear, a lot of Shazams, songs that and what I also think will be an apparent thread will be the fact that these songs are by and large mood elevators. They are the kind of thing that the times I'm drawn to music are when I'm down, or when I need to motivate, or when I want to be out in the sun, or I want to be on a stationary bike in the gym, and I don't want to have the news of the day blaring in my head, or I'm done with sports talk radio, or whatever it might be. And so I think the randomness of these songs, and also I think a lot of playlists, the algorithm's not smart enough, or the AI is not smart enough to link across genres. So if you put a John Cougar Mellencamp song on one of these streamers, you will then get the Eagles. You will then get, sort of singer-songwriter rock, boomer kind of rock. You'll get Bruce. You'll get Don Henley. It won't give you cross-pollinated genre music. And so my playlist is all over the place. It may skew toward R&B because that is the sort of thing I'm listening to. And today's song, which I will put in the link, today's song, which is I'm skipping around, and I was so fired up last week about something I can barely remember, but I was so fired up about something last week that I forgot this sort of new format. Not a new format, but if there's going to be a segment, there will be a music using this song as my theme for the week, and hopefully other things will appear in the theme. And it won't be so literal. It won't be, and it's not on my playlist, and I'm not that sort of overwrought or hackneyed or pressed for depth. There's no like Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah or, the Leonard Cohen remake that was seminal. Like there's none of that. And then I go into the song and what it means to me. Sometimes they're just pop songs and maybe I'll give some historical, not so much about the artist, because sometimes there's a one-hit wonders and there's not a lot of information. And again, I want to keep going off the dome and using what I have available to me in my memories. Of course, we could all Google, and a lot of people are making money on the internet, literally doing regurgitating the little bio on Apple Music. Very rarely do I, refer to that, but when it's a group or a song I don't know, I'll look it up, or I like to know how they frame. Like, for example, I've already said that there's some Jamiroquai on my list, and they, on this streamer service, they say the falsetto gifted JK, lead singer of Jamiroquai, JK, the British guy, the guy with the hat, falsetto gifted. Yes, he is. He is falsetto gifted, but it's, to me, that's not the primary, that's not a real primary thing to lead off with, because in most cases, JK is just a high tenor, and he's in his chest voice, not in his head voice. And when you think about the great falsettos, you think of Philip Bailey and Earth, Wind & Fire, and you think of the Stylistics, and he's not doing that kind of falsetto. He's doing it here and there, but he's just a high tenor, and he's got a great voice. I would say the soul influenced and funk influenced JK and the acid jazz, and it gets into that in the thing, but they really latched into the fact that this guy was a falsetto king, and I don't know that that's really the case. He's got a great falsetto that he uses, in my estimation, sparingly, like in Space Cowboy. He's got a little lick at the very top. All I'm saying is I'm not going to regurgitate that stuff because I'm going to give more biographical where I was at the time, and whether that's interesting or not, that again is the great debate. But the song being on the list, and why, when I was doing one of my jam sessions to sort of get myself in a good mood, why did I call on this song? That's what I'm going to talk about and see if that can elucidate a theme. And 74, the numbers aren't really doing it every week, so let's not sort of rely on that, because if I'm starting with what does 74 mean to me, I'm drawing a blank. Again, I'm sure there's a lineman with the number 74 that I'm blanking on. But once we get into the hundreds of these, it's going to mean less to, how many bus lines can I refer to? You know what I mean? But this week and last week I've had, last week I had a spate of auditions, a few voiceover stuff came through also this week, and I guess I'll share this because it's a bit of I'm embarrassed because I made a rookie mistake that I'm glad I was able to have interactivity and get some feedback from someone to get me on the right track, and I can't believe I didn't make this discovery sooner, and it's almost common sense, and and so I share it because I think people need to know it's still impossible to know everything, even as old as you may get, and being coachable, which has not always been my strongest suit because of a need to please and a need to be my need for attention made me a show off, and it's hard to be coachable when you're showing off so much. And all my times and all my struggles in classes and things were when I wasn't coachable. And coachable is I'll tell you, it's very attractive, and it makes the person giving the advice, giving the input, the one tasked, whether or not you want to play into the hierarchical nature of it all. When you're tasked with being the one to instruct, it makes that person feel so much better about things, and it's you just want someone to be a sponge and to be available to learn something. And I guess part of losing flexibility in spirit and in any endeavor and just in living is learning from mistakes and sort of putting your foot forward. So the audition I had, and I really felt like I was killing it. What happened is I want to shout out, I don't know if I want to put the name out there, but why not? Elevate is my agency, and they work their tails off, and I am so eager to bring home a big win for the office, and I know I will. But they work around the clock, and I'll get an audition at 9 at night, and sometimes even later. And I get them when they're due early the next day. Sometimes I'll just bust out my mic and set this up in a different part of the house, and I'll do it so that I don't have to wake up so damn early and warm up my voice, and I want to be ahead of the deadline. So I did it that night, and I guess I caught a nice little seam in my agent's time, and I said, hey, I'm doing this tonight, so if there's any need for a retake, I can knock it out tomorrow. And she got back to me, which has happened a few times, which means that they're listening, not to every single one because that's an overload of effort. But oh, sorry, that must have been pleasant for you. My apologies. But, and now my shit's all fucked up. But she got back to me, and that means she listened to it. And she said, I really love this. This is a great take. So she, again, a good coach is encouraging first and then the but, you know. And the but is where I was embarrassed because I should have known this. And I think by and large I do know this. But she said, the only problem with this is these are 30-second spots. And so she says, you need, and I said, oh, right. And to clarify, I said, okay, each script needs to be 30 seconds. And that's embarrassing because they are going for time, because in advertising and in time slots and what they're going to plug in the old models, these reads need to be to the second, and you can go under 30 or maybe 1 second above. And I should have known that, and I know but I was taking pauses, and I joked with her. I said, okay, I'll retake these. I was on my Hamnet tip. I was, doing monologues and treating it like acting, thinking that naively that they were just going to listen to this voice, this beautiful tone, and my take on the copy, and then convince me to trim it down and speed it up. And that's, they're literally listening for 30 seconds, and they want to know you can nail that. And the audition is to hear whether or not you can speed up the copy enough to sound natural, but also get it in, because then there's 15 seconds and et cetera, et cetera. And I should have known this, and I've known anecdotally, or I've known in the macro that, the famous La Fontaine, I forget his first name, but La Fontaine, the voice of God, the guy in a world, that guy, the guy who did all the voice overs for trailers and for everything, would drive around in a limousine, take a sip of whiskey to get the gravel in his voice, and he could go from studio to studio. This is before digital. And he had 10 seconds, 15, 30. He had these things locked in his head, and he was like a metronome and would nail these times. And just from reading the copy, he'd know what to do. And so that's what they're auditioning you for. And so I learned that kind of lesson. And then the other great thing that happened is the urgency and I ran a stop. Now, I've auditioned for a million fucking audition, but I've been blowing this probably, and then that was an automatic no. It was out of the pile because the dude's at 35 seconds. I can't use this. This guy should know that. I would use the time parameter on the software on the timeline of the sound wave, that I was using, and I was probably more times than not on time, but I was not doing that in a concerted way. And so when she said, yeah, hey, just so you know, I listened to it, it's really good, but you got to get these times down to 30 seconds. So then it gave me the urgency in the read to make the time, but to not sound hurried. And that's really what they're auditioning, is your composure. And that's the thing I'm starting to try to pay attention to. I don't always keep my composure, I'll be honest with you. And I used to think, I guess, as an angry young man or as a volatile actor, that it was part of my expressiveness. And now I find that my volatility and my sometimes lack of composure over small things, road rage is losing your composure. But another thing is that inner neuroses or that inner anxiety. So you would think in a 30-second thing, the whole point of keeping your composure is you want to sound composed and rapidly speak. And that's a part of the training and part of what you're auditioning for, and part of why your agent sends you these auditions is you have good diction and you can do voices, but you can also do it rapidly and not sound hurried, because even on episodic television, these things are 42 minutes with the commercials, and the commercials are on times, and Mariska Hargitay is going to get the close-up, and she can take her time. But when you can't, you know what I mean? When you're like, I don't know, I didn't do it. You might be like, I don't know, I didn't do it. Like, that's too slow, and they're going to get on you for that. And yet you still have to be able to be in your moments and in your truth about the moment with composure, but also with this inner time, the urgency of time being part of it. And how do you smooth that out? And so, I'm glad I learned the lesson late in life and late in my career, and I'm very eager to get more into pay attention to that shit, that because sometimes you get a 60-second read, right, and it's a long one. But again, there was a Ram truck commercial that I didn't get, and then they went with a celebrity, so I wasn't able to compete with that, but I bet you I wasn't paying attention to the fact that it's 30 seconds, And the celebrity is going to be courted, and so they can fucking send a 45-second take, and they'll be like, that's great, man, we just need to shorten it. They're going to give him that grace. They're not going to give me that grace. And so these are things you have to learn, and until you're able to, like I said last week, until you're able to push back, you got to really be on point. And so that's the sort of clerical business of the desk session, to talk about week-to-week progress. And I guess the theme there is to remain coachable, and just to take it on the chin once in a while. You got to take that embarrassment on the chin that you don't know everything, and that the obvious can really, that rookie mistake stuff is that's a hard one to take. It reminds me of Paul Newman, that great his Oscar-winning turn in the sequel to The Hustler in The Color of Money, Martin Scorsese, and that's the one with him and Tom Cruise. And there's a great scene where Eddie thinks he's getting his mojo back as a player, and he goes, I think he either gets his glasses or he gets them after, but he goes to a little pool hall on his own time. And Forrest Whitaker, he's playing people, and the dude on the calls the phone, get down here, we got a guy you want to play. And Forrest Whitaker, I don't know if it's his film debut. It's definitely not his film debut, because I think that would be earlier, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But Forrest Whitaker comes in, and he fucking hustles the hustler. And Tom Cruise and Vincent and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, she comes in, and he's mortified, and he's got that scene, pulls the shot. He's like, I showed my ass. He says, I showed my ass out there. I can't believe it. and he's humiliated, and he got took, like the hustler got hustled, and he can't take it, and that humiliation, and it's I think that's the scene that won him the Oscar, because he's up against the wall and he's like, I showed my ass. And it hurts when it also comes to, that you're supposed to know better. And so I got to swallow that down and now be empowered with the new information, and keep your fingers crossed that more will come across the transom, and I'll be able to pull some of this stuff in and repay my agents their faith so far. And anyway, that would be that. But so I made a rookie mistake, and at very least we caught it before, but I can't imagine how many times I didn't catch it. And the animation is a lot trickier for me. So I've had that. The timing is not so much an issue on the animation thing, because they're just checking to see if you can sort of personify a cartoon or have that kind of voice, or if I can do accents. That I do okay, but it's definitely outside of my comfort zone. Where I really stand a chance, not that I have a deep bass voice that they tend to go with, but I have, a pretty verbally dexterous ability. And so reading just sort of straight ad copy is where I feel I have some skill set, and to miss these time stamps is critical, and what may have been holding me back. And so I cannot go back. And now I know if I'm going to do a reel, if anything is missing those times, that you wouldn't put that on. You want to basically put a whole slew of you nailing 30, 30, 30, 30, like with the down to the t, united. And that the tap of the tongue on behind the teeth on the D, united, it's 30 seconds flatlined. You want to be able to do that over and over and over again with consistency. And so I guess that's the empowering way to look at showing my ass, like Paul Newman, like Eddie Folsom in Color of Money. So now, the song of the week that I will put in the link, and I think we've skipped. I was so jonesing last week that I forgot that I had lost composure to remember that every episode I'm going to lay one of these songs on you, and so I skipped. Now, that's okay, because this is all free form. This is my gig. I can do it my way, but it was a oversight, not a design feature. So the song that I'm going to put in the link in the description that you can go source out yourself, if a video exists. I don't know that a video even exists for this group, for this band. The name of the band is Fatback Band. I don't even know if there's a the, but it's the Fatback Band. And the song is I Found Lovin', with the apostrophe I-N, L-O-V-I-N, like Homeboy would say, McConaughey. L-O-V-I-N, I Found Lovin' by the Fatback Band. They have another hit or another song that they're notable for. And what this song is, you've noticed, I mentioned that I read the Mark Ronson book, and this song was a song I would hear two places. I would hear it live as a interstitial music for an open mic. I used to bartend at a club where there was this R&B open mic, and there was interstitial music, and they would always play this sort of as like a vamp or as an intro or as the coming to the stage, and they'd play this sort of refrain. That is what makes this song very infectious. And again, I would sort of try to like find these songs in the crates. It was harder to do back then, and I would recognize songs, but I couldn't get a hard copy of them because a lot of times they were deep cuts. And I would probably put this in a deep cut. Maybe on Urban Night in a roller rink, this would have been a de rigueur song. But for me, in my suburban mindset and coming out of college, I was made familiar by exposure to a different enclave. And so Fatback Band, and this would be in that warm-up part of the night where before the club fills up, before the DJ's really going to spin like his. And like I said, Mark Ronson had a formula. So from 8 till 11, it was this. And then 11 to 2, it was this. And then it's literally chill them out and then bring them up and then bring them down and then get them out the door. This song would be in the preamble, the sort of cocktailing, just chilling out. Or if it weren't a dance club and it were more like just the lounge, you'd hear this kind of song. So Fatback Band, I Found Lovin', and it's got a slow build and it's kind of a mid-tempo. And you'll hear it if you click on it. I wonder if I might start including these songs. I don't know how to get that to be kind of a legal thing for YouTube. I don't want to run afoul. So I guess the link will have to suffice, but I think being interactive with it and explaining it. And truthfully, the person who put this song in my ear most notably, and where I think I even got the title and the name of the band, was Funkmaster Flex, who I think he just left Hot 97. But in the 90s, when I was kicking it in New York and in the clubs, he had a long set every night, or at least on the weekends, and I think he was like the tunnel DJ. But he had a big sway, and he produced people too eventually. But he would always play this song kind of in that chill out, mellow kind of part of the night. And so that's where I first became acquainted with this song. And again, when it came back into my life, it's not going to be put into the mix on a, how do we put it? It's not going to be put in the mix on a playlist very regularly. I don't know where it charted. It didn't chart very well. But anyway, the Fatback Band, I Found Lovin'. It's such a good mid-tempo. It just, and Fatback, I think that's a reference to a large caboose, ample bottom. Baby Got Back, if you know that, by Sir Mix-a-Lot. A nice round bottom is what a fatback, but it could also mean, something like a car might have a fatback, or it might be something like a cooking term, but I really think it refers to a big fat ass, you know what I'm saying? And so, and they have, like I said, they exist on, they have a back catalog, and they have another hit, which is escaping me. And so I guess we'll leave it at that. Maybe this is going short. I have to get this in today because I will have some construction issues here. So I'm gonna have to move stuff around. So the backdrop may be a little cluttered if I didn't get it done today. So anyway, stay coachable. Stay coachable and learn from your mistake, and then empower yourself to know that now you know. And if you don't know, now you know, to quote a lot of folks and the B.I.G. But yeah, Fatback Band, I Found Lovin'. It'll be in the link. The link will be in the description, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.